but have the Bernie thing behind us.
Yeah, I've got the Bernie thing over here if you want it. I don't care.
Not really.
There it is. If you'd like it, there's Bernie. Also, I can also do that. I got Bernie up in the corner if you want him. There he is.
That's fine.
By the time, like, if you ordered the bobblehead or something, it's over though, right? They burned it out. It's over.
No, it's just getting started. But by the time you get sick of it, it's just when
that's when it started. You know, when I was with radio, when the Jacks started complaining we were playing a song too much, that's when I started putting it in hot rotation. All right, I got everything shared in Zuckerberg world. Let me see if I can do the same thing on Jack Dorsey world here. Jack Dorsey, which is 90% diarrhea free without Trump being on there.
Did you read? There's one of the columnists in the Times, Farid Manjoo. He wrote today. He says, you know, this whole thing about banning Trump and free speech, you know, for about 5 seconds, I was slightly concerned about it, but now, holy shit, I'm all in on that. That is the best. That is the best damn thing that's ever been done.
It's made everybody's life a little bit better. Yeah. It was like cocaine for news networks.
Right. Yeah, but it forced Kevin McCarthy to have to get on a plane.
Oh yeah,
they couldn't tweet back and forth,
and
they can't talk. They can't talk on the phone either. You know that doesn't.
That's what I hear.
All right, here we go. It is the Brad and Britt cast, our fourth and final performance of this week. Thank you very much for joining us here live in the 1:30 Eastern hour. And later on, of course, if you catch us any other way. If you catch us any other way. Thank you.
Wherever podcasts are served, including Spotify and iHeartRadio, radio.com, everywhere.
Right.
Hey, I don't want to hijack things right off the top, which means I'm going to hijack things right off the top, but you haven't talked about this all week.
Yeah.
You got to tell me about this GameStop stuff, because this seems to have turned Wall Street upside down. They don't know what to do with this whole situation.
Can we hold on for a few minutes on that one?
Yeah.
Because things are happening really fast right now in so many areas, and I think you and I are in the transition phase of Trump derangement syndrome withdrawal, and we had it. We have to. By the way, I'm proud that I had it. I'm not embarrassed. I don't consider if someone who thinks that we've been against Trump and we hate his guts and we think he's full of shit and he's a liar and he should be that if they say we have Trump derangements, that's a bad thing. Okay, all in.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Happy to have the disease, but we are trying to move on, and a lot of things are happening in Washington. And yes, we're going to have an impeachment trial, and yes, Donald Trump needs to be held accountable at some level, not through a censure. Oh, bad boy, bad boy, bad boy. That's not good enough. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe Biden has done his best, I think, very quickly to reverse a lot of the horrible things that he can through executive orders, or as the New York Times would say, Joe, could you cool it on the executive orders? So here we go.
Why are we wringing our hands over this?
Well, there's a little bit of wringing, but anyway.
Why are we doing that?
Right. But today, a piece of news happened, and it isn't necessarily Washington news, that really is a remarkable thing. It's General Motors saying that they're going to stop making gasoline and diesel powered cars and SUVs by 2035. They're going all electric now. With the pickup trucks and things like that, they say, well, we can have them down to zero emissions by then. But the cars and the SUVs, and of course, they don't sell as many passenger cars as they used to.
Right.
But SUVs, they ain't going away. So it's kind of a big deal. I think that's a real line in the sand that they drew. And I wanted to make sure that we understand when there are things called derangement syndromes.
Oh, yeah.
Right-wingers and climate deniers and Newt fucking Gingrich and people like that for 25 years have been up Al Gore's ass, making fun of him. Oh, he's such a jerk. Oh, what a green wussy. And here's the story. This was April 22, 2000. April 22, 2000. And he's standing in the middle of automobile country. That would be Michigan.
Yeah.
Right there. It's Earth Day. It's the 30th anniversary of Earth Day. And Al Gore says the internal combustion engine could be eliminated by 2017. All right. So we're 3 years past that and obviously hasn't been eliminated, but it was about the aspirational aspects of it and the direction of the country and the world and trying to address what we've all seen and experienced for several decades, which is the weather changing and getting worse and fires getting worse and hurricanes, all those kind of things. And he wrote that originally 8 years before in his book called Earth in the Balance in 1992. And to this day, Al Gore is a punchline for idiots, I think, because he has been, I think he's been proven right. He's absolutely been proven right.
They whine and talk about his private jet and how much carbon is put in the air when he would go places on his private jet. Right, and he was so worried. He got his Oscar, all that other stuff that they mock him about. And you're right. It turned out he was 121 years ago. 21 years ago. That's the prescience that this man had to do that. And you're right. The General Motors announcement it's a game changer. It's something that I didn't know I was going to see in my lifetime. I certainly hope to be alive in 2035.
And of course, I only bring this up because it affects me.
How's this?
Well, we have two really old cars. I mean, one is a 2009 model, and the other is a 2006 model. So they're not going to run forever. Even I know they're not going to run forever. So I guess I'm thinking the next car should not be a gasoline powered car. Why not? What would be wrong with that? It's not that they work. They're pretty good. They're getting better all the time. Why would I not?
Well, at the very least, a hybrid. The hybrids are somewhat, they're a lot less expensive than they used to be in terms of
that's
cost
minimum.
I've had a hybrid now for almost 8 years. Do you know how many miles I have on my hybrid vehicle?
You have about 20,000, right? Isn't that right?
20,000. That's exactly right. I have nearly 270,000 miles on that car. 270. This is either my third or my fourth set of tires on that car. And I'm not saying I'm better than you because I've kept a lot of carbon out of the atmosphere, but I'm better than you. I'm much better than Al Gore.
No. Don't say you're better than me because, of course, you're not better than me. That's you shouldn't say you're better than me because, remember, I am better. That's the reason.
That's the entire. I'm not saying I'm better than you, but I'm better than you. I mean, I'm not really.
My dog's bigger than your dog.
So it's a game-changing thing, and I'm sure in the marketplace now the stock must be getting killed on this announcement because Wall Street must hate this sort of activism, right? Is that what's
you could not be more wrong. General Motors stock, which has kind of been moribund, been just flat for many, many years, a couple of weeks ago, just took off like a rocket. And they've been talking to other companies, battery companies and things like that. And the answer is Wall Street noticed and Wall Street liked it. And Wall Street doesn't look back at 1934. and they don't say, well, if we could just have the auto fleet look like it did in the middle of the Depression, everything would be good again. Let's make America great again. Let's make the auto fleet look shitty again. No, they know that, they understand. So,
and if it's working, you're getting this sort of reaction from General Motors, then the others are going to follow suit.
Follow. Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
I think they're all doing it in some form, but this is just a big deal. Again, we don't want to always refer everything back to Trump, but Joe Biden has only been president for what, 8 days? But here comes the GM announcement. After he is officially the president, and if that same announcement had been made while Trump was president, would there have been a tweet, and not a very complimentary tweet?
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be some sort of backlash among the asshole conservatives in this country, that there's going to try to be some sort of congressional something to protect the all important oil industry in places like Oklahoma, Arizona, and Texas. And they're going to 10% of the vehicles that you make have to be gas. I mean, something, they wouldn't interfere in the private sector in that way, but then again, they've tried to, even though they say that they're the party of, free trade and all this other horse shit, and they don't like to get involved with stuff like that. There has to be some sort of way to strike back. The Jim Jordans of the world, and the Josh Hawleys of the world, and the Tom Cottons of the world, right?
Hang on. You don't have to suppose. Let me give you the reality. Bullshit.
Oh, sorry.
In other words, you were flying your helicopter right overhead.
Yeah.
You didn't quite land it, but here it is. Headline: Mitch McConnell: Biden unleashed a tsunami of pink slips with new energy restrictions. They're not going to allow new oil and gas drilling leases on federal lands. And so Mitch McConnell said, Democrats hate jobs. Democrats hate oil. Yeah. Democrats hate Texas, because we remember Texas is an important state for the election. So he's playing the standard tune that Republicans do: circle the wagons around oil and gas companies. And if you want to play the stock market game with oil companies, and look at Exxon. Exxon is so far down. All the major oil companies are so far down into the toilet. They are nearly uninvestable, and they have been. Price of oil is up a little bit in the last few months. Stocks are up a little bit off the bottom, but they are so far, because it's yesterday's technology.
Right. And a lot of those companies are trying to diversify to get into windmills and solar and stuff like that.
But you can't do that. There's not going to be, Exxon is not going to be the solar panel Exxon company. It's not going to happen.
And if the Texas economy is based on dead dinosaurs going forward, then they're going to die. All these people who moved from California to Texas are going to suddenly go, why did we do this? Well, I don't think that's what's happening.
But see, all the people who moved to Texas, they're not all working in the oil industry. They're not moving there to work in it. Texas is diversifying its economy. They're going to be just fine. And there's still going to be oil and gas for years. But I wanted to reference that story and fact check it, because we talk about this all the time. There's nothing that Mitch McConnell won't exaggerate and lie about.
Yeah.
And that goes from whether he's going to actually consider the evidence and maybe vote to convict Donald Trump or not. The lie, that's a lie. By the way, I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love to be proven that he would look at that and have a come to Jesus moment, and his wonderful wife, who used to be in the administration as the transportation secretary.
And when did she quit? I forgot. When did she quit?
I think 2 weeks before.
I believe it was January the 7th. I believe she quit right after she saw the insurrection that the violent attack that Donald Trump inspired on the Capitol.
Right.
I believe it's when she decided, peace out.
Right. So here's what I did. I went and I looked up whether Mitch McConnell might have any legitimacy to what he was talking about. And of course, it took me 3 seconds to find that Mitch McConnell was, how should we say it, lying and exaggerating about the effect on jobs in the oil industry by what Joe Biden is doing. Because these companies that are in this business, They have leases and commitments going out about 20 years. Okay.
In
other words, nothing will change.
Right.
Nothing is going to change.
That's right.
Certainly in the short term.
That's right.
And with the General Motors announcement, and that isn't even 20 years out, 2035. My goodness. We'll still be pulling shit out of the ground. Don't worry. We'll still be polluting the air. And I just think it's an important marker to note. Oh, by the way, while I was looking that up, the first thing that came up there, and of course, this is just talk about bending over backwards to try to justify your point. They wanted you to know, because I was looking up what Al Gore had said. They wanted you to know that, remember, the internal combustion engine in the last 100 years, comparatively speaking, has made the world so much cleaner than it otherwise would have been. Listen to the explanation. In the year 1900, about 200,000 horses were shitting in the streets of New York every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. Thank you, Henry Ford.
Right. So when the car came along and there were no longer horses in New York got a lot cleaner. Now, I think there's something kind of in between that, just a little bit, because it wasn't a choice of, well, would you rather step in horse shit and have to smell the methane fumes when they burn it out in the meadow there, or we're going to have internal combustion engines burning oil and gas for 100 years and doing what it's done to the air. It wasn't an either or situation, but I found it amusing that was the first piece that came up.
Yeah.
In the series, a whataboutism defense of the internal combustion engine as we move into clearly the electric vehicle era.
100 years ago matters, but 200 years ago when the British invaded the Capitol, and it just happened a few weeks ago. It's interesting. It's so strange. This is the story in Mediaite, and there is a follow-up. Who would have thought that GameStop would be the company to finally bring unity to a divided nation, Brad? Senator Ted Cruz and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you know her as AOC, in addition to several other politicians from both sides of the aisle, have vocalized their condemnation of the stock trading app Robinhood and that decision to block lay investors from purchasing GameStop stock. Robinhood's suspension of trading came after a shock boom and a quick fall of GameStop stock prices, and spearheaded by Reddit users on a message board. We'll get into some of the detail of that later. AOC was told about Ted Cruz and his support of her, and she goes, "Miss me with that," as the kids say. "You almost had me murdered." That is what she said to Ted Cruz. "Thank you for the support on this, and gosh, we're together. But remember that time you almost had me killed? Thanks, but no thanks." What happened was that there was some people on the famous Reddit website, which is called itself the front page of the internet, who decided that there were some people who were shorting the GameStop stock, which means they were betting on it to go way down because the business practices and none of the information coming in about that company are positive. And they said, "We like GameStop. Hey, everybody, let's get together and buy a shit ton of this stock." And they did. And it went way up. And I know that Jim Cramer had a statement earlier this week going, this ain't right. The basic fundamentals of the stock market are being subverted. You have meddled with the primordial nature of the universe. And so things have kind of evened out now, and this activism kind of stuff, you've seen it go on all week long. This is like a big controversy on Wall Street, and people are just scratching their heads over how this could happen. Brad, what do you think of this GameStop story?
Well, again, let's go back to what we said initially. Of course, I blame Trump for this.
How do you do that?
No, I consider this series of moves, these series of moves by these folks out there, many of whom are young, strapping bucks with a lot of time on their hands. They may not have regular jobs right now, but they have some money. They may have gotten those checks several months ago from they've got a little money to throw around. And the populist, fuck the man is screwing me, I can't get an even break attitude that was, of course, twisted and perverted by Donald Trump and convinced people, our fellow citizens, to vote for him for president. I think that mindset is present with a lot of these guys who they don't work for big Wall Street firms, although, to be fair, believe me, there are some Wall Street people, big money people that got in on this also. It wasn't just boys in mom's basement doing this at the end, because once the momentum started, other people were jumping in. But I think this is just the financial equivalent of storming the Capitol. This is the financial equivalent. And you want to talk about occupying Wall Street? These guys really occupied Wall Street.
This is the real Occupy Wall Street.
For a couple of days. And when you occupy Wall Street in this way, you get a lot of people's attention who normally don't pay attention or make comments about this aspect of Americana, including Ted Cruz and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I would say the fact that both of them had their ears raised and had to chime in on this tells me they're both probably full of shit and don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, but one of them is clearly one of them is clearly way more full of shit than the other.
I understand, but he might. But on this subject, he might know more of the details because he's Ted Cruz and he went to Harvard.
Well, but also, do you think Ted Cruz really understands what Reddit is? I think AOC probably has a better understanding of that.
Well, it isn't. It is not a question of knowing about Reddit.
I think it is. Because I think it is because I don't think Wall Street knew what the fuck Reddit was until about Monday morning. I don't think they had any clue as to how impactful that particular platform could be. But now I think they've been given a pretty good graduate level course in exactly what can happen on Reddit.
But it wasn't the platform that did this. Reddit didn't move the
say what you will. I mean, people weren't able to connect.
They were just. It's like saying Twitter hates that movie. Twitter doesn't hate it. The people on Twitter hate it.
If Twitter was able to make a movie make $3 at the box office and kill a movie, then yes, Twitter would matter. This was all about Reddit. I'm sorry, but yes, the platform does matter. This didn't happen on Twitter. This didn't happen on TikTok. This didn't happen on any other platform. This is a part of the community, and the ability for this to come together happened on that particular platform. And yeah, it does matter, Brad, because that Wall Street is now catching up with what is this Reddit thing.
But my only point there, it could have happened on another platform, on another.
But
thing.
It didn't.
Okay, but hang on, just hang on. It's not that it was that, it's that it happened, because you're sounding like the Republicans. It isn't what we did wrong, it's that you found out about it. Okay.
No, that's not at all.
Yes, it was. I got you. Just give it up. Give it up.
There's a specific demographic that goes to Reddit to do stuff. See, this is exactly, we're kind of talking past each other. And yes, it does matter. And there are a lot of people that are like, I don't even know what this Reddit thing is. And now they're quite familiar with the kind of people in the demographic. And AOC is much more lined up to understand what these people do. And now Wall Street's like, I don't know how we restrict this. I don't know what we do with this. And I don't know how we fuck with it. And you're right. Like Robinhood and some of these apps. Let me just give you the idea, because for people who don't know. At the beginning of the week, the stock starts out about $42.96. And these stories are coming out about all these big hedge funds, and they're shorting the shit out of it because the fundamentals of the business are dying. So then they start the campaign. On the 25th, it goes up to well over 100. It's at 129. It spikes earlier on the day that we're speaking in early trading to well over $400. And then it fell to a low of about 153. And it's still up above 200 even as we speak. And nobody really understands why, except, as you say, there are a bunch of, I don't know, modern day hippies who have decided, hey, let's save this thing, and they don't know how to deal with it. This is your 1960s.
By the way, I think it was up into about 515,
and now it's down,
and then it was down to about 112. So it had. There's never been.
Ted Cruz can preach the free market all he wishes, but he's really super full of shit. She's a teeny bit full of shit. As far as this whole, but they don't know what to do.
This is the beef, I believe, that they're expressing by pulling this off. The big guys used to think that they only were the ones that had the inside information. They were the only ones that were smart enough to say that this company's going into the toilet and buy puts and buy short the stock so that if it goes down, they make more money. They were the only ones smart enough to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if they ever turned out to be wrong, don't worry, the government will bail them out. And if it's 2007 or 2008 and big banks and insurance companies and bad government policy cause everything to go into the toilet, don't worry, we'll bail you out.
Because when you short a stock, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, it's theoretically there's an unlimited amount of money you could lose when you short a stock, correct? There's theoretically it's
right. Yeah. It's like betting on the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's an unlimited amount of money.
It can just be a bottomless pit of cash that you would.
And so stop betting on the Jaguars. But anyway, so my thought is that because of the attitude of Trump that has pervaded this country, these guys thought, and they might not even be Trumpers. They might have not have voted for Donald Trump or even thought about, but some of them may have. But this idea that they're getting theirs, why aren't you getting yours? Why can't I have mine?
Oh, that's interesting.
And whether what they were doing or are doing right now is legal or not, it's probably right on the borderline. Because if you publicly go on message boards like, what is this Reddit? I've never heard of it. Yeah. Anyway, and say, and what other person in the last few years would say what he was going to do and then go do it and dare you to stop them? It's Trump, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. So these guys did that. So are they colluding? And is colluding between private citizens who are public about what they're doing to say, hey, I bought GameStop or Bed Bath and Beyond. There's a bunch of other stocks that are doing. American Airlines, I think today the same thing happened. I'm buying it. You should buy it too. Is that illegal? It's probably not illegal. But on Wednesday, it really got everybody rattled. I have to tell you, I was very nervous. I was very nervous on Wednesday that this might be the trigger point for everything to come crashing down, that the system was in some kind of jeopardy. And I didn't know why for sure, why I thought that, but I thought, you know why? Because we just had a 4-year period where we know a guy could have started a nuclear war with a tweet. And since he could have started a nuclear war with a tweet, why couldn't a bunch of people doing what these folks were doing cause the mother of all financial crashes? Why couldn't that happen? Mm-hmm. And the answer is, I think it could. Mm-hmm. I don't, again, we're not out of the woods yet. This isn't let's put it aside. Let's pretend it didn't happen. Let's buy the dip. Let's back to business as usual. It doesn't work that way. This is not the last we're going to see of these kinds of things. But very quickly, the big money interests and the federal government are saying, well, let's take a look at this, because it is their responsibility to make sure that it all doesn't come crashing down on top of everyone. Because AOC, I love you, like you, but if stock values plummeted 60% tomorrow in a massive crash, that would not create one job, that would not put one person back to work, it wouldn't get the schools back, it wouldn't help anybody. So it isn't in everyone's interest to see that happen. And by the way, even though I think 80% of the stock is held by the top 10% of people and all that, it still is ingrained in the overall economy. It's not ingrained in the everyday real economy of what's happening. And I think that feeds into this too. Income inequality is so outrageous right now, and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
Been getting worse for 40, 50 years. I think peak income equality was 1976.
Jesus.
That's when it was the distortion between the highest income people and the lowest was closer than it ever was before that. So think about 1976. Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, that was the year that Carter was elected, and he decided right then he was going to fuck things up, and we haven't looked back since. No, it wasn't Jimmy Carter. It was not his idea.
Well, it is interesting because for a long time after World War II, we kind of had this thing going on where the very rich in the country went up and the middle class kind of went up. And that happened for about 30 years. And then, as you say, boom, after that, we decided it's way better for rich people to get richer and for poor people to get poorer. Somehow that was decided.
And you know, your numbers are perfect because World War II ends in 45 and add 30 to 45. I'd have to get out a calculator for that, but I think that's 75.
That's about
only,
right.
That's only one less than 76.
That's right.
You know, 1976.
That's it.
And after that, things started to change. And it was in 1980, I believe it was 1980, that the then esteemed Nobel Prize winning economist Milton Friedman, who was as bald as I was, I believe he was the one that made the statement that companies exist for the shareholders.
Yeah.
Up until then, it was thought that companies exist for not only shareholders, but for the employees and for the good of society.
For everybody.
And you had, of course, there were rapacious corporations and piggish executives. You know, there's always been that. But it wasn't until 1980 when Friedman said that, it's almost like a light went on in corporate America.
Well, you don't.
And they decided then, you know, that remember, that's the beginning of the end of the unionization movement in the country.
The deterioration of unions, yes, that has certainly played a part in this over the past 45 years. That's correct.
That's a fulfillment of what Friedman said.
It is. And it's also just the GOP in general selling the bullshit that is supply side economics to America, being able to package it nicely and say, as long as we take care of the rich people, then you don't understand. If we cut their taxes and the only way to grow an economy is to cut taxes on really rich people. That's essentially what they've been saying and been selling to America. And a lot of people have been like, well, that sounds right. Let's go with that.
Well, see, I think it goes beyond that. Remember, cutting taxes is the answer to everything, every problem.
If Kim Kardashian has another extra $4 million in her pocket, she's just going to hire a shit ton of people. Don't you understand that?
Right. Which is, it's funny because that fairly exaggerated example, which of course is accurate. You know, the marginal increase in income that the total upper end gets through lower tax rates, they don't spend that. No, they don't create jobs with it. They might throw it in the markets. They might just save it. Who knows? But right now, the big argument in Washington is how much excess money is going to be sent out across the country this time around to people who don't need it. And the answer and the criticism, especially from Republicans, although a lot of Democrats agree with this too, that if you send money to people who make more than $100,000, who are not really hurting, guess what? They won't spend it. They won't hire anybody. They won't do with it what you really want to do, which is go out and consume with it. So what you just said about the tax rate and what is going on right now with essentially lowering the tax rate for people down on the lower end more than it does for people on the upper end. If you make $500,000 a year and they send you $2,000, you know, it's just nothing. And percentage wise, it's not much of a tax rebate either. But if you make $24,000 and you get $2,000, well, shit, that's about 8%. That's about an 8% increase right off the top there. It is a big deal. So these are kind of ironclad rules that never change over time. It's just the politicians who lie about them take on different personas over the years.
This is how effective they've been with this horse shit for many, many years. In this package, Joe Biden is talking about raising, and the Democrats are talking about raising the minimum wage to $15. And you've got people that make 30 and 35 grand who say that this will be the end of humanity. If there are people right now who are making $10 an hour who go up to 15, businesses will close, dogs and cats living together, volcanoes will erupt. There'll be no more Walmart. Your Big Mac will cost you $75, Brad. And these are the horseshit arguments that they make.
Well, it isn't just theoretical arguments that they make in this area that are wrong, like you just said. There have already been a ton of real life examples of what happens. And the way they do it is with border states, where on one side of the border, the minimum wage goes up to $15 an hour. And then on the other side of the border, the minimum wage is still, $8.75. Well, what's going to happen? All those businesses that were over on the 15 an hour side, they're going to close and move over there. They're going to go out of business. They're going to fire people. And it never happens. It just doesn't happen that way. It gets proven over and over and over again. And if you get a uniform $15 an hour wage, then it definitely wouldn't happen. It didn't happen when you had the opportunity. It just doesn't work that way. Now, is it perfect? Does no one, here we go. And this is the kind of the Fox News argument. They will find one person in Seattle who was a waiter who got fired because the high-end restaurant, which used to employ 13 waiters, had to go down to 12 because of and they extrapolate that to everybody, everywhere, all the time. And they run with that, right? That's what they do. That's how they argue these points.
Fox News
by the way, it doesn't matter that the other 13 people are much better off with a higher wage or however they do.
Fox News loves the anecdote. They are all about the anecdotal. They find the one thing, and then it's like, the one person, the kid got thrown out of school for having Jesus tattooed permanently or temporarily on their face. And just
hang on.
Into the world.
I was watching them at about noon today.
Yeah.
And I do this because I like to do you favors and
I appreciate that. Don't think I don't.
And it was a full central casting story like you're just describing, and here it is. And I missed the first minute of it, so I don't think I missed anything about the gist of the story. It's a terrible, tragic story. A kid who was 18 in Illinois committed suicide.
Right.
And his mother is on one side of the screen, and this lawyer from this libertarian right-wing lawyer training group is on the other side. And in the middle is the Fox anchorette Harris Faulkner, and she's in tears. She's in tears as she listens to the story of this mother who lost her son to suicide because he was so depressed because he's been locked down by the governor of Illinois, a Democratic governor in a Democratic state,
right,
for the past year. And he hasn't been able to play football. He hasn't been able to play sports.
Right.
And so she's filing a lawsuit against the governor of Illinois.
Sure.
And the reasoning is, and this is the line that they're going with. Look, college football, they figured out a way to play college football. Yeah. The NFL figured out a way to play. Why couldn't high school football happen in Illinois? And of course, the snappy answer in the capitalism hating Fox News was, well, they're big money makers in college and pro, and high school football is not, so they didn't care about it. So, and they went on for about 10 minutes with this line of thinking, but it was all designed, of course, to paint the evil, autocratic Democrat governor.
He's pro-suicide. He's
responsible for this kid's suicide. Sure, and, of course, it's a terrible story.
Right.
But
There may have been other factors than him
Right.
just not playing football.
Right.
I'm just going to go. And by the way, there are kids across America that are suffering through depression because they're not able to go see their friends and go to school. And I get that. I do. And I have sympathy and empathy for those people. But if they're dead from COVID, they can't play football. They can't study. They can't hang out with their friends. I'm sorry. And now this whole rush to get them back in, and we're going to have all of these safety. And you're seeing Republicans now who think that public schools are shitty and can't do anything right. But in this case, they're going to be able to sanitize and make sure the virus doesn't get to children. Previously, these schools could do nothing right. They can't educate our kids. They can't feed our kids. They're just so incompetent. They're so feckless.
Well, there's I think a reasonable argument, and I think the evidence now is kind of in across the country, that it is true that schools did turn out to be less unsafe than was initially thought. There's no doubt about it. So, and to continue and finish up the bookend of that story, they're also running hot and heavy. I think the story's even on the media. I don't know if, but I saw it on Fox, where they've got video of this guy at a school board meeting in Virginia just screaming at the school board because he's so frustrated with his, in and out. Can you decide or not decide? And if you can't figure out how to do it, get out of the way and I'll run for office. I feel for everybody, and you and I are arguing this from more of a theoretical standpoint because we don't have to deal with it. We don't.
You don't
have a kid in the other room.
No, I don't. But I know I happen to be very much fond of someone who does have a child who might have a kid that would want to go back to school, and she's struggling with all of the way a lot of parents have. And do you know what that terrible Joe Biden has done? Do you know what that awful son of a bitch Joe Biden has done? He's making it so that schools are going to get cleaning supplies and all sorts of things that they might need to sanitize their schools so that they can reopen. That son of a bitch, that Joe Biden, that socialist sociopath, Joe Biden is making it. He's interfering. Here's the federal government once again interfering in local school systems. And God damn it, I won't have it, Brad. I won't have it for 1 second.
Well, wait a minute. Since when is wiping down stuff?
Well, I don't think it's.
I
think it's more than that.
I mean, I'm telling you that is.
I think it's like barriers, and stuff like that. It's in addition, and then it's also the air purifiers and all that.
Yeah, okay, as long as it's that.
It's not just here.
I hope we're not going to have sanitation theater.
I don't think it's going to be here's some Lysol, go to town. I think it's going to be a
variety. The Lysol is being used right now to fight the coronavirus, where in the injectable version. I hear you can get 6 injections now instead of 5.
6 injections of Lysol.
Yes.
That's nice. But going back to our previous point about taking the minimum wage up to $15, one of the great things that Republicans have been able to do is to get middle class and poor people to fight and denigrate poorer people. This is what's been happening in America over the past year, is that, we love our essential workers so much. Thank you, the guy who manages the frozen food section at Food Lion and Price Chopper and Meijer and Publix. Thank you so much. We love you. But if you want to make $15 an hour, fuck you. We hate you so much. That's what they do, is they get middle class and poor people to fight with poorer people for wanting $15 an hour. So these are people who have for the past year professed their love for essential workers. Oh, I'm so happy that at my convenience store I can still go in and get some Skittles. Thank you, and I love you so much for showing up for work. And yet, if you want $15, they treat them like chumps. And this is reminiscent to me of what happened during 9/11. Because we're going up on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Oh, we love our first responders so much. And by God, they went in there. And what happened to those people that we supposedly love so much? We treated them like chumps. When the firefighters got sick and started falling out and dying for cancer, what did they have to do, Brad? They had to go hat in hand to Congress to get the money that they were promised. They were promised that would help them fight back against cancer and all sorts of diseases that were making them die.
Yeah, they had to enlist Jon Stewart to.
They had to shame Congress, and you know how it is to make those people feel shame. It's very difficult. So these people, these essential workers, they used to be our heroes, but now they're just assholes for wanting $15 an hour. And these people on 9/11 who rushed into these buildings, they were our heroes. But if they want some money, I don't know. I'm not really sure that we can come up with that cash, which we promised them for doing their jobs and going above and beyond their jobs. Eventually, those heroes end up being chumps in the end.
We gave you a bonus of $400 back in May.
It's unbelievable.
What about that?
As we finish up our week, would you like to address the re-education camps? This is the great fear. And again, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. When they talk about
when are we scheduled to go? When are we going to go?
This is what Joe Biden is going to do to conservatives across America. There's going to be re-education. That's their key phrase, and you again hear this a lot on Fox and on all the way.
Wait a second.
Yeah,
he's not going to do that. The Obama re-education camps are up and running fine. We don't need any new ones.
This is where we're going to turn the FEMA death camps. You remember this? This was happening. This was part of the FEMA death camps from 2009 and 10. They're going to just be turned into Joe Biden re-education camps.
Well, I think let's just put it in the gigantic hopper of idiocy of conspiracy theories, because this would justify you strapping on your military gear that you bought online. You live in Missouri and you got in a car and you drove to Washington, because you're not going to be in no re-education camp.
Exactly.
That's what the commies used to do. And
exactly.
And I guess if you live in some kind of narrow world, let's say you were on a Reddit page that was devoted to Joe Biden conspiracy theories, and you started to believe that the way you think and the things you say are in the process of being made illegal, and could get you arrested for just having the thought. You could lose your job. You could, right? All kinds of terrible things. If you just say the wrong thing, well, then it's time to take up arms to defend our way of life.
Right.
So I think that's really what it is.
By the way, taking up arms and defending our way of life means killing Mike Pence. Apparently, that's the number. That was the number one way to defend our way of life, is we have to murder Mike Pence, who's okay with it, who just let it go.
Britt, nobody can clean their plate perfectly. There are sometimes things that get tossed out that you might not have initially intended, but when Mike Pence refused to do the right thing and try to blow up the Electoral College vote, which he had no power to do, which he couldn't do, which he could have never done. But these folks were told that on that day, on the 6th of January, it was all going to happen. Mike Pence was going to just stop the music, just stop everything. It was going to be like that end of the Academy Awards a few years ago when they opened the envelope and it said something different. It was the wrong winner, right? It was the wrong winner. But they corrected within a minute, and was it Moonlight got the Oscar instead of was it LA whatever the fuck
LA
that movie
Story,
was,
whatever that thing was,
with Emma Stone and Ryan whatever his name was.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, that one.
He's handsome.
But I guess if you inhabit that world, our job is to try to figure out, is there any way to poke through this? And I think there's pretty much general consensus right now that you shouldn't even try. That you can't do it. This isn't about you sitting down with, I'll just pick someone out of the left, your brother, and saying truthful things about the reality of the world and expecting that person to immediately renounce every thought that they have had about who is the legal president of the United States right now.
All right.
It is Joe Biden. It's not Donald Trump, and it was not going to be Donald Trump we knew that by about November 6th, right? Took about 3 days. And that was it. And it was not going to change. And I guess if you've had that shit poured into your head all these weeks and months, and now years, you're not going to give it up. And since the Republican Party now, it looks like, for the most part, has said, we can't give you up, never going to give you up, Donald Trump. And here's our
Rick Astley.
right.
But didn't it look like a couple of weeks ago that McConnell was kind of wavering
It was bullshit. I was always bullshit.
Didn't it look like there was a sober, like, I think for the survival of the Republican Party, we're gonna have to distance ourselves from this guy.
You know what he did? He put out the idea to see whether anybody would follow along, and the answer is they're all afraid.
No dance partners.
In the end, it's down to this: I would rather hold on to my job as a senator or as a congressman. I can't remember who it was that said this in the last few days. For so many of these people, and we don't think about this all that much, for many of these people in Congress, it is their entire life. It's everything. That's all that matters to them. And so therefore, they will do anything, including sacrifice 230 years of democracy in the United States in order to hold on to a congressional seat in a rubber stamp dictatorship where Donald Trump is reinstalled illegally as president. Really? Is that what you want? Are you willing to accept that? Apparently they are. And so therefore, I don't know how you have that conversation. I don't know how you do it. And, the time between now and the beginning of the impeachment trial, it's a pretty dangerous time. I mean, look, the intelligence agencies didn't put out this warning in the last 36 hours about look out below. They're still plotting and scheming, and they want to pull something off. Because remember, maybe from your point of view or my point of view, that was not a very successful coup, and the government of the United States was not overthrown. And members of the government were not killed. Only what, 6 people, or is it up to 7 now? With a second police officer that committed suicide. Maybe he can blame the governor of Illinois for that one too.
If there would have just been football available to him, he would have been perfectly okay.
Right. But these folks look at it as a victory. These people look at this as the opening salvo. These people look at this as just that was just the first drive of a football game. First drive, and there's still 13 minutes and 40 seconds left in the first quarter.
That's what somebody said. That's what somebody says. If you're not punished for like a coup or for armed insurrection, then it becomes a practice, or it becomes like a test run.
It isn't even. It's that, but it's also proof that you can do this.
Yeah.
And the consequences will be minimal. And as more people are arrested and we find out the biographies of more of these people, the less it is of just mouth breathing white guys in the basement.
That's right.
Now they would have been better off sitting in front of their computer trying to make money in the stock market than doing
as it turns out.
Had that.
That's how you bring it full circle, right there.
Right. But it didn't happen. So I guess the only good thing now is at a high cost of 6 or 7 lives and a lot of injuries, a lot of serious injuries there too, brain injuries. And how could there not be a lot of brain injuries? Like that guy that got squeezed up against the door. I don't know how he's still walking. I don't know how he's still alive after that happened to you. I mean, that's the equivalent of every bad concert stampede you've ever heard of.
That's true.
And there it was. And these people were doing it on purpose. Okay.
Absolutely.
It wasn't, they weren't trying to escape anything. But you got to think that they're plotting and scheming and still planning, but we're finding out who they are. And we have way too many members of the military who have turned out to not want to uphold the oath they took to the Constitution of the United States when they first joined the service. That didn't mean anything to them. And we're in a heap of trouble. I think
Yeah.
we're in a big heap of trouble here. And sadly, we have a horrible example of useless protoplasm hanging out in Palm Beach, Florida, just waiting. And they fly down there now. Kevin McCarthy flies down there to kiss the ring and pay tribute and let him know that they're all still Trumpers. We're all still on your side, sir. And what else is he going to be saying to him? What else? Why else would you fly down? Of course, as always, it's a power move, right, for you to go to him. That's the ultimate Donald Trump power move, right?
Of course it is.
And because, last time I checked, he is free to travel about the country. He does not have to stay where he is.
That's right. But he doesn't have the cool plane to fly on anymore. And that was really the whole idea. Now he's just got to fly on like a regular plane.
Now he's back to that. He's got that old Hugh Hefner plane, right? Isn't that the one that he had? Isn't that the one that he bought and repainted it?
You want the big penis to fly around the country, and he doesn't have that anymore. It's not the same, Brad.
Right. All right. And by the way, one last thing. I hate the 2-week gap before the Super Bowl.
I thought you liked it. I thought you enjoyed that.
No, I hate it. I hate it. And they should have just delayed the season one more week. But I know they wanted to make sure they had enough time to get all the games in. So I guess they started when they started. But they could have delayed the season one more week, and we could have had just the one.
But you're gonna enjoy the Madden Pro Bowl, so that's all that matters. That's coming up this weekend. It's gonna be huge.
It's virtual, isn't it? It's not even real.
They're gonna play on their little video game controllers and shit.
Let me I'm gonna give you permission to do this. If you ever catch me caring about people playing video games, and I get it, it's a thing. I know 20,000 people in a stadium watching people.
There's 90 subreddits on that.
Right. I'm more than willing to be the old man on the porch and say I just don't care. I'm going with that one all the way, and I stand by it.
I just don't get it.
I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Anyway, I will see. By the way, fast question: did you ever watch The Handmaid's Tale?
No, I haven't seen it. I was living it, so I didn't need to.
What? What? You obviously haven't seen it. If you think you've ever lived that,
I was awake in America during the last 4 years. So yeah, I was living.
No, this actually. We've watched one episode, just one episode.
Well, I think I watched part of one episode, and it was so hilarious. I couldn't. I couldn't.
No, it was so. This first episode is so dark and so ugly that Jane refuses. She absolutely refuses to keep watching.
That's funny.
She just absolutely won't go there. Just, if you want to watch that yourself, that's not the kind of thing I want to kind of watch.
I'm going to steal away for a couple of minutes and just grab the iPad and just go to town.
Yeah, every day when we get done doing this, I'll go in there and catch a couple of episodes just for an uplifting afternoon.
Let me get a cup of Chex Mix and head to the bedroom and watch Handmaid's Tale for a little while.
Yeah.
See you guys.
All right, bye.